Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, with artists, writers, scientists, educators, social scientists, government leaders. We speak with each one to one. I'm delighted to welcome Della Britton Baeza, the president and CEO of the Jackie Robinson Foundation, to the program today. We'll learn about the many young people of color who have had the chance to go to college thanks to the Foundation Scholarship Program. It's a mission Jackie Robinson's widow, Rachel Robinson, felt would be worthy of her husband's life and work. And since 1973, it has been. Welcome.
Thank you, Sheryl.
Now, the Jackie Robinson Foundation bills itself as the nation's premier education and leadership program. That's a pretty big claim. Tell me about that.
Well, I probably should say that that was the New York Times description of the Jackie Robinson Foundation, which we willingly embrace. I mean, I must tell you, it was quite a compliment when an article came out on us a couple years ago. And after having spent about 3 or 4 days looking at our program, that was the way they described us. So I have to attribute that to the New York Times, but as I said, I embrace it. You know, I think it's an appropriate title because the Jackie Robinson Foundation is one of the few minority scholarship organizations that has a dual approach to the issue of the achievement gap in higher education. That is, we feel strongly that students need financial assistance for obvious reasons, but equally strongly that you have to give the students that we bring into our program strategies to succeed through college, that it's not enough to give financial assistance. We have to also give them the strategies and the security that they need to be able to excel. And I say that because at a time in our country when 40.5% of the African American college students who attend college initially actually graduate, 7 years ago, when I came on board to the Jackie Robinson Foundation, there were 47% graduates, African American graduates from college. That's an interesting statistic because one would ask, isn't part of the reason for that a greater number of students are going to college? So that number, the percentage itself is skewed somewhat because begging the question, is it that more African Americans are going to college that maybe should not be college bound, or is it a real sort of achievement gap issue? In walks the Jackie Robinson Foundation to say that there really is, there's a need to focus on why the achievement gap is widening rather than narrowing. And I think besides the issue of financial aid, besides the issue of preparedness, that there are some other issues that we as a society have not begun to address as to why minority students are not comfortable enough in some of the institutions of higher learning. And that's what we focus on in our program.
And what is going on? What are the other issues?
Well, I'm glad you asked because we are really on the crux of developing a program that reaches beyond our core constituency. We have 220 scholars in our program this year and between 220 and 250 depending on the year. We want to begin to reach beyond that core group of students and share what we've learned over the last 40 years working with minority college students with a larger percentage of the college students that are matriculating in colleges and universities throughout this country. And one of the ways we want to do that is to codify what we know and what we've learned working with students, and then to put it online, to make it available in mass distribution, through mass distribution means, and share that. Some of those instances include the basic feeling of marginalization that young students of color feel on these college campuses. Ruth Simmons said it when she addressed our students 5 years ago. She had just taken over at Brown University as a president, and she said, you know, many of the students do feel the taint of affirmative action, a sense that we are only here because standards were adjusted and standards were lowered to let us come in, and it does affect the student psychologically.
And maybe I'm not up to competing with the white students?
Exactly. And we have found that in the last several years, we've been doing some pretty intensive research with our group of students, focus groups, all kinds of ways to sort of gauge what's going on. blatantly asking them what's happening, visiting them on their college campuses. And what we're finding is, yes, indeed, they don't do things like read the bulletin boards. They don't get involved, and I'm generalizing, obviously. Some students are more involved than others. They don't get involved in campus university organizations. They don't interact with the majority population in the ways that they should to ensure success and to ensure a real exposure to the institution itself. And so one of the things we do in our program is encourage that kind of interaction, but give them steps, give them strategies. Okay, join a club where there's a subject matter involved that you're comfortable with, where you'll feel empowered from the beginning. We talk about getting to know somebody on campus who is completely different from you in terms of their socioeconomic background, their ethnic background, and not just coffee once a month. Go to their homes for Thanksgiving. Go visit them. Have them at your home. Reach out and really develop the kinds of friendships. To know someone is to love them, and to develop those kinds of friendships. The other thing we find is by not integrating themselves in these institutions, they miss valuable academic information and curriculum information that other students have access to just by virtue of the social interaction. Avoid that professor. He's going to be tough on you no matter what. Interesting, with our STEM students, our science, technology, engineering, and math students, we found out interesting strategies that they weren't aware of. If you are a pre-med student and you're matriculating at Princeton University, you really don't have to take that bugaboo organic chemistry at Princeton University.
No.
You can take that at Allegheny County Community College in the summer.
As long as you take it and pass
As long as you take it. And indeed, medical schools want to check that box because the organic chemistry curriculum is the same no matter what school you're at. The textbook is the same. The professors may be different. The competition in the classroom may be different. But, those are the sort of things that we found other students knew.
To make it easier.
And our students know. Exactly.
Wow.
So those kinds of, if you will, tactic strategies.
Okay.
And I just give you a couple of examples for how in-depth our program is in mentoring the young people who come into the program. And there's no reason why we can't take a lot of that and make it more broadly available. So, when you talk about us being a premier organization, we're constantly thinking about how we can take what we do and give it sort of more teeth and make it have a greater impact than it does.
You started in '73. Was that the year that the first scholarships were awarded? When were the first scholarships awarded?
1973.
Okay.
And it started with 2 scholars.
Two.
Deborah Young and I believe John Skipper may have been one of the first.
From 2 to 220 or so.
From 2 to 250 has been our highest. 275 has been our highest number, but with the economy the last couple of years, we're down to 220 with our.
Have the demographics of your scholarship recipients changed over the years? I mean, were your first 2 students Black? Were they Black in the early years?
I would say in the last decade, we certainly have added. We have about 12% of our students are Latino.
Okay.
Some Black Latino, some maybe not characterized that same way as one's nationality is not one's race, but so I think we have a greater percentage of Latino students. We have a smattering of Native Americans. Pacific, Asian Islanders. We have a couple of Korean students. It really kind of runs the gamut because what happens is we really do open up our application to anyone who wants to apply online. And if a student, sticks out and seems to have, that propensity for leadership and community service, which are other criteria we look for in choosing Jackie Robinson scholars, we find that the net's been a little broader. But we focus primarily on African American students.
Okay. Have the kinds of colleges that your scholars attend, have they changed over the years? Was it primarily historically Black colleges in the early days?
No, because when we started, it was really the advent in this country of integration on major college campuses, and I think there was a sense that, exactly that. How do we make sure, we've been going to HBCUs for many years, how do we make sure those students who are now integrating other campuses have the strategies that they need to be successful? I would say the types of colleges and universities hasn't changed, except that we've gone to more colleges and universities.
Okay.
We are now enrolled in 92 different institutions across the country. In a given year, it's anywhere between 90 and 100 different colleges and universities. So it's broad, and anything from pretty much all the Ivies, HBCUs. I'll say some of the larger HBCUs: Morehouse, Spelman, Hampton. Lincoln, we've got a couple students at Lincoln. Howard, which of course, as you know, is no longer an HBCU, it's independent, but, and then large states.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's its own entity now.
So what's the selection process like?
It is now occurs completely online. There was a time when literally Jackie Robinson Foundation staff would go around to colleges and universities and to high schools and recruit. But now the program is popular enough, and as you know, the internet, you Google scholarships for minorities, and we pop up as one of the premier scholarship organizations. So it's all done online. We get about 3,000 applications a year. We choose about 100. So it's a very intensive, selective process. The several hundred finalists are all interviewed, and a personal interview, that is. And so we obviously whittle it down to 300 to 350 a year to pick 100, and we interview 300 to 350.
And what are you most looking for? What are you most looking for?
That's a good question, and it's not so, it's really not so, that is not so codifiable, because we really are looking for obviously a basic level of scholarship, some display of
high
leadership.
achievers? Are you looking for high achievers?
We're looking for students who meet a threshold of achievement, in other words, over a B average.
Okay.
And that's adjusted depending on the type of school a student goes to. We do have some students who have been in private schools, even in boarding schools. And so, you know, we know that a B at certain schools is different from a B from an inner city school in some cities around the country. So we're looking for basic scholarship. We're looking for students who show a propensity for leadership, because we do feel that we're a boutique scholarship program in the sense that we're looking for leaders so that they go out themselves and sort of promulgate and be, you know, and be role models for other minority students. So that, and we're looking for some interest in community service, because we promote that, again, in the spirit of Jackie Robinson and Rachel Robinson. And so we're looking for that special something that, you know, if you will, kind of reminds us of Jackie Robinson.
Okay.
That gives you a sense of that kind of person who is comfortable in his skin or her skin, maybe, if you're pardon the expression, rough around the edges in terms of their socioeconomic exposure, which is another thing we do in our program. It's a very comprehensive, rich program that includes career counseling and practical life skills. Anything from public speaking to how to balance a checkbook and manage your personal finances to how to eat in a 4-star restaurant. Because we think that's important.
We're going to take a short break, then we'll be back with more with Della Britton Baeza, President and CEO of the Jackie Robinson Foundation, right after the following messages.
Yeah. That's it.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. When you adopt a child from foster care, just being there makes all the difference.
Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Della Britton Baeza, President and CEO of the Jackie Robinson Foundation. We were talking about the mentoring component. Well, first of all, what's the size of the scholarships?
It's a cash gift of $7,500 each year during their 4 years of college. But again, as important as the cash award is the comprehensive mentoring program, which also includes internship placement. So if one wants to sort of, you know, talk about numbers, about 60% of our students get placed into internships this summer, and now about 40% in permanent employment. We've tracked it over the last several years.
Through the foundation?
Through the foundation.
Okay. Now, as for the rest of the mentoring component, I mean, how many do you, once your scholars are chosen, do they spend a certain number of weeks before they go off to college with you? How many contacts would they have with the foundation in the course of a year?
Great. Yeah, that's a good question, because one of the things we're very proud of is we actually have reduced to a curriculum our mentoring program. We call it a mentoring curriculum. They're selected during the spring of their senior year of high school. We meet them in a reception in 8 different regions around the country during the summer before they start school. We give them a handbook, which each year gets filled with more and more information, strategies for, you know, how to navigate their campuses, and strategies about things that they won't necessarily get from their college campuses. We then have a best practices manual for 8 regional mentoring committees around the country that are primarily volunteer. We try to send a paid program person out to all of these 8 regions, but we have 90 people on an 8-region committee whose responsibility it is to keep up with each of those students. So that each student is assigned to an adult mentor. One of the things that works well about our program too is we're very, very organized about making sure the students know who each other is. So for example, an engineering student at UCLA will know the engineering student at Morehouse, and they will communicate through the internet. So the students themselves serve as a mentoring system. Each month, the adult mentor that we assign to our students is responsible to touch base with the student, preferably in person, if not by phone, and last resort by email, to say, how's it going? How are you doing? Should you drop that course? Should you add this course? So it is pretty intensive. And then every year we hold a 5-day mentoring conference in New York City. We bring the hundreds of students into New York City, and that will happen next week this time.
Is that voluntary or mandatory?
It's mandatory
through
the 4 years with us. And that's when we're able to get that big shot at giving them a very sort of defined set of skills. I mentioned before we broke everything from public speaking to exposure to cultural events, how to eat in a 4-star restaurant, how to dress. And we think those are the things that give them a comfort level. We like to say to them, okay, we're going to make sure you know what to do with that fork and that knife so that you go to that interview and you're yourself and you can just be you and all that you are. So, when I say comprehensive, I really mean that there are some elements to our program that pretty much
seems to me that
bespeak parenting.
That's what stands out about what really distinguishes your
very hands-on
program. You have an International Fellows Program, correct?
Yep. Started that 4 years ago. It's the Rachel Robinson International Fellows Program, the RIF program, the music metaphor, riffing on what we already do. And that is a program we're excited about, where we've paired with CARE, the International Human Rights Organization, and we've sent students abroad to Africa and Latin America for community service. And in addition, we have partnered with some of our corporate sponsors to send students abroad for corporate internships.
Is that a summer-long?
We had to say it's 8 weeks,
okay.
So not the entire summer,
right.
So that they have some lead time. But we sent some students to Basel, Switzerland, to work with Novartis last year. We've sent students over to work with Unilever in Paris. And then the most popular part of the program is community service, with the students spending time in anywhere from a village in East Africa to the sort of standard building houses in Costa Rica kind of program, wherever CARE places them.
Right. How about follow-up after they graduate from college? And you have almost 100% graduation rate, or what's the graduation?
We do. It's nearly 100%.
Okay.
90, the mathematicians would tell you, we've lost several students in the last, say, 10 years. So we like to say a 97, 98% graduation rate. We're at the point where we say nearly 100.
Okay.
That's the crux of it. We have a very active alumni base of 1,400 alumni of the program. We have about 200 to 300 whom we are in touch with, and about 500 whom we know where they are. At the 40-year mark in the history of an organization like ours, it's kind of time to start marshaling the alumni. As you know, it takes a while. We're not a 100-year-old college or university, but our students do stay in the fold and as alumni. And 2 of our board members are designated as alumni positions. One of our board alumni members is a managing director at Goldman Sachs, and the other one is an executive in the legal department at Con Ed. And they've been active, and they are now 2 of our very valued donors. That's the way the system works.
That's right. That's right.
They're your best, they're your best salespeople.
Absolutely.
So we're very excited about building the alumni program even stronger.
Some notable stories you want to tell me?
I'll tell you one that, because you journalists always ask that question, what's the juicy stuff? I'll tell you one that I actually told at our awards dinner 2 years ago, and I still get people to ask me about it. There's a guy in our program, and I'll call him, his name's Craig, I won't say his last name, who during this 5-day mentoring weekend where we're all interacting with the students for this 5-day period, and Craig was a senior, and he pulled me aside, and he was the third. I had been at the foundation for 3 years, so I had gotten to know Craig. I don't get to know all the students, but I'd gotten to know this particular guy over the last 3 years, and he came up to me his senior year at the last networking weekend. He said, Miss, I said, when you have time, can I talk to you? I want to talk to you about something. And I said, sure, let's meet. And I said, let's meet here 1 o'clock tomorrow before the luncheon. And he pulled me aside and he pulled a check out of his pocket, and he said, because of the foundation, I got a job with ATT. AT&T, and I'm going to be working with AT&T next year. And he said, I clerked with him in the summer, and he said, I want to give you this check. It's dated September 19th, which is when I'll get my first paycheck, and it's for $100. And he said, it's the first installment of what I want to do to help the foundation, because not only have you helped me get a job and helped me grow up, but you helped me learn how to give back and how I can be philanthropic even without money, that just my brain allows me to be and my educational background allows me to be philanthropic, that is, and help people. He said, but I want to give it in a tangible way, and it's kind of powerful. Mm-hmm. It's kind of powerful.
Where does this financial support for the program come from?
We have what those in the nonprofit world would call a public branch of the foundation and a private branch of the foundation, which means we have a private endowment that theoretically in a good market kicks off enough income for us to help defray the costs of our program. But we are also constantly in fundraising mode, which means as a public organization we do everything from have activities and benefits to raise money to making a lot of partnerships. Interestingly, we're in the unique position of being able to go to corporations and say, look, you ought to support this because it's God's work and it's the way of the future, and we all ought to be promoting education in our country. But you might want to know that these young people are very well prepared. They are driven, they are bright, and they may just be able to bring some value to your organization or your corporation. And so, needless to say, a lot of our partnerships end up being that we place our students at Deloitte in internships, at Goldman Sachs and GE in internships, and many of them go on to be permanent employees. So in this age where I think corporate America is serious about diversity, I call it our authentic diversity period, where no longer is it just grab.
Are they serious about diversity?
I think some of them are, more and more. I think there's enough out there that there's a good partnership that we've developed. One of the things that works well for us is we give a lot of feedback to those corporations with whom we partner and place students. In other words, at the end of that summer, for example, we sit down with the people they've worked with at the organizations, our staff, and they talk about how it went, how to go, what can we do better, could we have prepared that student better. So that give and take, again, it takes hands-on, concentrated attention. There's no quick fix to this achievement gap. I don't care what level of education you're talking about. Even on a higher education level, you've got to get in there and really be hands-on. It just doesn't just magically happen. There's a lot of baggage in our culture in terms of integration in our institutions. And we focus on that. We're not afraid to deal with it. Right. Not afraid to talk about it. As Eric Holder said, we're a nation of cowards in terms of talking about our racial differences. Well, we're not at the Jackie Robinson Foundation.
We got about a minute and a half. You've got your annual gala coming up.
Yep. Thank
you for that. Tell us about that.
On March 7th, next Monday, March 7th, we will have our largest annual event at the Waldorf Astoria again for the 27th year, hosted for the 26th year by Bill Cosby himself. We are honoring this year Ingrid Saunders-Jones, who's the president of the Coca-Cola Foundation and also senior vice president for global community affairs for Coca-Cola. We're honoring Joe Perella of Perella Weinberg, very well-known investment banker in New York City, who is a wonderful friend of the foundation and just a very responsible corporate executive. We are also honoring Sean Diddy Combs, the hip-hop entrepreneur, now branched into the clothing business in a very successful way, and in the vodka business as well. And we're excited about this eclectic mix of honorees this year. Very interesting people to put in front of our scholars as well. And tickets are still available, I'm told to say.
You hear it, you heard it. In your dealings with your students, I assume that you use Jackie Robinson as an example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I like to say about the foundation, too, that at a time in our society when we are shy to talk about values, where it's not politically correct to talk about sort of old-fashioned values, we at the Jackie Robinson Foundation are not afraid to embrace the sort of values by which Jackie lived his life: discipline, integrity, compassion. We talk about spirituality. What does that mean? How does it help you? Whatever spirituality an individual may embrace, how that's important. Mind, body, spirit. it's clear that Jackie made it through the incredible journey that he made in this country by the spiritual guidance of his religion, and he was a devout. Rachel told me many times that not a night went by that he didn't get on his knees and thank God for his life and his blessings. But the help of Rachel, I mean, that bond between them as a couple is another value that that I think is nice to hold out.
You can see that when you meet her,
Absolutely.
even now.
Absolutely.
We're out of time. I want to thank Della Britton Baeza, President and CEO of the Jackie Robinson Foundation, for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more, check out the Foundation's website at JackieRobinson.org. For the City University of New York and 1 to 1, I'm Sheryl McCarthy.